Let's do The Walking Dead Season 3. Alright guys, it's Walking Dead Season 3 time. Let's just whoop out the script here. And I have a pretty big elephant to confess. I am not an OG The Walking Dead fan. I am as OG as a 2006 born kid can get, okay? I started watching when I was 7. I think it was season 4, episode 9, the episode after. So I was not an original The Walking Dead fan. Basically what I did was I watched that first episode and then I was like, okay, I like this. Where can I get more of it? That's when I hopped on Netflix. Because, you know, at the time, Netflix was basically everything. There was no AMC Plus. And Netflix would only do it to where they'd add a season after it finished. I think they still do that. Yeah, they do. And they only had seasons 1 through 3. Now, because seasons 1 and 2 are honestly just okay, and this is when the show starts getting good, I fucking love this season. I mean, guys, it's perfect. Not perfect literally, but perfect. And basically, I will go out of my way to point out any cons. That being said, however, yes, there is cons, and yes, this season is middle of the road. It's probably the season I have the most memories about, but it's middle of the road season. If I were to rank all the Walking Dead seasons, I'd probably put this at around 6, 7, or 5. One other thing I have to mention about this season before I get into the actual rating of the episodes is that in a video by Kuroto's Mystery Shack, please go subscribe, my 7 viewers, I learned that they covered 2 issues in episode. Season 2 only covered about like 0.03 issues an episode, which probably contributed to the pacing. And you could really see it in this season that this pacing is absolutely off the fucking wall. And one final thing is this is obviously the prison season. Alright, you guys, let's get into season 3. By the way, these seasons start getting really long. This is like the first truly long season, and it does not get better. Damn, I love Be Light. Alright, Seed. I like this episode. I like it a lot. Is it a better premiere than season 1? I don't think so. But it's actually my favorite premiere so far. While I would give Days Gone By a better world building, storytelling, I'm not going to give it performances. Because I think the performances in this season, or in this specific episode, are way better than they are there. Because I think at this point, everyone got used to their role. So let's hop on to pros and cons. I mean, the biggest pro is obviously going to have to be that they find the prison. And this is just a very miserable episode. I love how miserable this episode is. The action is also unironically my favorite part of this entire show. Like, for a drama, this action is absolutely insane. And I'm also going to give this episode no cons. Not because it's perfect. I mean, it's a really good episode, but it's not perfect. But I can't really find any cons to really heavily criticize. Except for the fact that Rick's really mean to everybody.
Don't patronize me. About what? You want to talk to Herschel?
I guess. Next up, we got episode 2, Sick. And guys, I thought he got bit in this episode. Herschel, by the way. But no, he gets bit in the first episode. Here's when they do the whole amputation thing and they find the prisoners, whatever. So we'll give a pro to season... Oh my god. So we'll give a pro to episode 1 that he got bit in that episode. But in this one, they find the prisoners. And it's really cool. Because, you know, they just explain everything. And there's nothing else. It was fun seeing them all die. Alright, I think this is the second worst rated episode in this season that I'm gonna rate? Yeah, it is. Okay. But it's not the worst episode, and not the worst episode in the show by miles. So starting off with the two best pros in this entire episode, Merle is finally back, and we get introduced to our good friend, the governor. But there's a big but. Like, really big. I think these whole Woodbury scenes that happen throughout all of season 3, look, I get they're trying to world build, but in the comics, Woodbury is actually a very big mystery. Like, we only see like 2 parts of Woodbury, and that's like the places where the governor keeps Rick, Michonne, and Glenn, and the arena. That's all. Plus, you know, the governor's room, I guess. But Woodbury being shown in complete depth, like, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. I would have preferred it to be a mystery, but that's more of an opinion than an actual criticism. I still like the fact that they show Woodbury. You know, like I said, it's good for world building, but I still think that it should have been left a mystery. Apart from that, though, our actual con is that I just don't like this episode. Like, if I'm ever rewatching season 3, I normally just skip this episode because this episode unironically has pretty bad pacing. Alright, guys, this is the first Walking Dead episode that is actually really, 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 really good. You know what? I can't wait. Like, I can't wait. This episode is a 9.6 out of 10. I'm not going to wait until the end of the video when I say all the scores. This episode is near perfect if it weren't for the fact that throughout the emotional scenes of, you know, Lori's pregnancy and T-Dog getting bit, we get fucking Woodbury scenes. This is what I mean. I don't like the fact that Woodbury is our second location. The prison should be our only location. But now we have pros, and guys, the performances in this episode are the best they've been so far. I get the whole Rick crying turns into a meme eventually, but back in 2012 when I wasn't watching, this was pretty deep. And later on in The Walking Dead, I mean, you could count Dale as dying in vain, but none of the characters that die here actually die in vain. I think both the major deaths in this episode have a massive purpose. T-Dog dies saving Carol, and Carol ends up becoming one of the best characters on the show. And Lori dies giving birth to Judith, showing that you can make new life in a zombie apocalypse. And Carl's sadness in this episode is absolutely ridiculous. Now, me and a lot of other Walking Dead fans have publicly gone on record saying that Lori in the show was not handled pretty well. Like, she's a pretty bad character in the show, you guys. But this performance by Sarah Wayne Callies is insane. It's really good. And it really sells me on the sadness of Lori's death, because if this was similar to the comic death, where she just gets shot, and if Judith's there or not, it doesn't matter. But if she just gets shot and, you know, she dies super quick, I don't think I would have felt anything, because she's not the best character in the show. In the comic, she dies like that, and I still feel sad, because in the comic, she's an actual better character. But the fact that her death here is drawn out, and it's mostly played just so we could see how Carl reacts to it, and eventually how Rick reacts to it, is a really good execution. The reusing of the barn scene is also amazing. They reused that amazing barn scene that I praised last video between Rick and Carl. Super good. And is our follow-up better? No, it's not. It's not better, you guys. Daryl taking on a quick leadership is kind of fun to watch. And the fact that Rick is crazy, and this is our first glimpse into Red Machete Rick, which is going to be a really fun part of the next 2 videos. Hey, I mean, if I'm being honest, this whole season Rick is kind of just like an asshole. But I mean, this episode is just alright. Like, I enjoyed it, and when I rewatch the season, I do not skip this episode because seeing the aftermath of Lori and T-Dog's death is pretty good. Oh, and we're meant to believe that Carol's dead, and I mean they sell it pretty well. Like we do really believe Carol is dead until they reveal her. Now we got number 6 Hounded, and Michonne is the star of this episode without a doubt. Glenn and Maggie getting captured by Merle works really well, and this episode's really good overall. Way better than episode 5, but not better than episode 4. Now we got episode 7, When the Dead Come Knocking. This adventure to Woodbury is fun to watch, and the governor just becoming progressively more scary as the season goes on. It's pretty cool. That chair scene with Glenn, that's peak fiction right there, guys. And overall, this episode kind of kicking off the whole Woodbury prison war, sort of, is done really well. And episode 8, Made to Suffer, follows it up even better. This invasion of Woodbury is...
Hey yo, what the fuck?
And we get some Daryl conflict, which is also always really fun to watch. The reason he's conflicting, because in case you guys didn't know, him and Merle are brothers, and Merle's alive, so he doesn't know whether to stay with the group or go back with Merle. Here we also get our infamous governor loses his eye scene, and our unfortunate cons are that Oscar dies. Wow, damn. Can't wait to see how Axel reacts. And also, something that I won't say is a pro, but that I won't say is a con, is that Tyrese and Sasha get introduced, but I'm not saying it's not a pro because I don't like their characters. I'm saying it's not a pro because the way it happens, it kind of feels like those Marvel scenes. You know, like when Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire come out of the portals and they just, you know, they expect you to just lose your minds. It kind of feels like that. Because at this point in the comic books, Tyrese was already like a well-established character. So comic fans knew who he was. But if you were a show fan and you were watching this, you're probably just like, oh, it's a guy. The Suicide King. This fight between Daryl and Merle is very entertaining, but what's even more entertaining is Rick and Maggie rescuing these people. And our Daryl conflict gets kicked off once again, and this time Daryl chooses Merle. Our next pro is that the governor is insane again. Alright guys, next up we got the biggest example of my bias this whole season. It's episode 10, Home. Rick's whole I've gone insane arc has been going on since Lori died, and I've been not mentioning it because I wanted to save it for this episode when he finally confesses it to Herschel. It's a really powerful scene. And the bias is that the first really big action piece of The Walking Dead ever was Too Far Gone. But like I said, when I was watching this season, it wasn't on Netflix yet, and I had no idea because I started watching during the second half of season 4. So I didn't know about that whole tank thing. So basically this was my first glimpse of the action in The Walking Dead, and I rewatched this episode at least 3 times a day. And I mean, it's not even as deadly as, you know, Too Far Gone. Like, I think the only person that dies here is Axel. And that leads us into our con, and it's that you cannot hit this shot, okay? That's not fair. Now we have episode 11, Iron to Judas, and Andrea sees the group in this episode, and she also sucks. Let's move on. So we moved on into a better episode, and an episode I honestly haven't seen that much. Like, when I rewatch this season, I don't skip this episode, but I kind of zone out from it. So when I saw it in preparation for making this video, I forgot how good this episode actually was. Yes, our biggest pro of this episode is that Morgan comes back for about 5 seconds. Along with that, we got Carl and Michonne's super cool dynamic, which only gets better throughout the show. Hey, did I mention that Morgan is back? Yeah, Morgan's back. And this whole insane Morgan arc, my favorite part of this episode. Overall, it's a pretty good episode. The one next is better. Now we're at our last 4 episodes. 4 episodes that I like, except for one of them. We'll see later on. But Arrow on the Doorpost is my third or fourth favorite episode in this whole season. We got our long-awaited face-to-face with Rick and the governor, and they both throw amazing insults at each other, but I mean, Rick is obviously...
I thought you were a cop, not a lawyer.
Either way, I don't pretend to be a governor.
I told you I'm their leader.
You're the town drunk who knocked over my fence and ripped up my yard. Nothing more.
I'm their leader.
You're the town drunk who knocked over my fence and ripped up my yard.
And now it's time for me to bring up a word that I haven't brought up since the last video, and that's tension. I really like the tension in this episode. It's not the highest it's been in this whole season, but I love the tension in this episode. And then Maggie and Glenn make up. I forgot to mention that they were fighting because I can't disclose it on YouTube, but just watch the season, guys. And our only unfortunate con in this actually fairly really good episode is Andrea. Of course it is. Now look, I don't think Andrea's the worst character to ever exist in The Walking Dead. There have definitely been some pretty shitty characters, but it's just a way that she's handled in this show. It's just really insulting to her comic counterpart. But what I don't like about this episode involving her is the fact that Rick and the governor have so much tension around them. They are both talking face to face. We don't know if a fight could break out any second, but she just comes out of nowhere. She just appears and pops up. She spawns in. But that's really the only thing that I don't like about this episode. I like this episode through and through, and it's weird, but when I was little, I didn't like this episode. I think it was just because I was small. Alright guys, now we have the worst episode of this season. It's pointless. It should have been combined with either Arrow on the Doorpost or This Sorrowful Life. But it's not terrible, and I like Andrea versus the governor. Moving on. Alright guys, we got This Sorrowful Life, episode 15. Yeah, that was our first pro right there. Now, while I wouldn't call it redemption, I would definitely say that it's really sweet seeing that he truly does love his brother Daryl. He's not doing this to get back at the governor. He willingly chose to leave the governor. The one con I will give it is that it's kind of slow, but not unbearably slow. We have our kind of finale, Welcome to the Tombs, and the governor, he loses his mind. He's a lunatic. No one fights back. Like, you could have easily killed this guy. Especially him. What are you doing? Fucking kill him. And let me mention that this all happens, this whole slaughter happens after the group finds some badass way to kick every one of them out of the prison. This happens in a rage. The governor's mad that the group just embarrasses him. They all fight and fight and fight, and everyone leaves. But they do crash the fence, they blow up a tower. Next up is one of the biggest highlights in Carl's whole development throughout this whole show, and it's that he kills what seems to be a kid much like him, just surrendering his weapon. It shows that he's becoming hardened by the world, and we see where he's coming from when he explains it to Rick why he does this. And this is a pretty dark yet understandable scene, so I'm really glad that they put this in here. And this ending is sweet, but like I said, it doesn't really feel like an ending, mostly because there's just a lot of loose ends to tie up. But I like the fact that they take in all the Woodbury people, especially since most of them are children and elderly people. And last on our list of pros is that Andrea dies, but not because she dies. It's because it's kind of similar to the Lori thing, where, yeah, a quick and sudden death wouldn't have given much of an emotional reaction out of me. But this whole sequence of her apologizing or saying that she tried, it really makes you feel for her. Like, Yeah, she was a sucky character, but it wasn't really intentional if you think about it. She was just trying to make sure as much people can be saved. Alright guys, that was season 3 of The Walking Dead. I finished this much quicker than I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to be here for a good 3 hours. So I'm really glad that I was able to speed past some episodes in case you didn't notice. But now we have to rate them all. So let's go lightning round really quick. Number 1 seed, 8 out of 10. Number 2, 6, 7.5 out of 10. Number 3, Walk With Me, 7 out of 10. Number 4, Killer Within, 9.6 out of 10. Number 5, Say the Word, 7 out of 10. Number 6, Hounded, 8 out of 10. Number 7, When the Dead Come Knocking, 7.3 out of 10. Number 8, Made to Suffer, 7.5 out of 10. Number 9, The Suicide King, 8.3 out of 10. Number 10, Home, 8.6 out of 10. Number 11, I Ain't a Judas, 8 out of 10. Number 12, Clear, 8.3 out of 10. Number 13, Arrow on the Doorpost, 9 out of 10. Number 14, Pray, 6 out of 10. Number 15, This Sorrowful Life, 8.9 out of 10. And number 16, Welcome to the Tombs, 9.2 out of 10. Can't wait to be back for season 4. The overall score for this season, 8.3 out of 10, by the way. Forgot to mention that. Thank you, bye.